Now back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
Oh, baby, don't go. Baby, please don't go.
And welcome back to the Law Show on CL 650. I'm Zach Spencer speaking with Rudy Kisher and Alex Stojicevic, partners at MKS Law in downtown Vancouver. And for the show, we've been talking about the President Trump executive order banning people coming from 7 different countries and the ripple effects it's having. Now I want to bring it right down here to the Lower Mainland and the calls you're getting, because a big part of what you do, correct me if I'm wrong, is dealing with people trying to come back and forth a lot of times into the United States and Canada who are at a fairly high level. They are being employed by a company to work in Canada or maybe go down to the United States. So are people anxious about this? And what kind of calls are you getting?
Yeah, we're getting calls from companies that have employees that have been working for them for years, that are either Canadian nationals already, but had perhaps were born in Iran, and then they're needing to travel, and they're calling and asking, well, should I go down for that business trip? I'm supposed to go down for a week. You know, what's going to happen to me? And we're sort of advising them that is extremely risky. You know, we don't know what's going to happen to you at the border, and therefore, if you're taking that, you're taking a risk that you're going to get stopped. We're also getting calls, from people that are already in the States wanting to come up. They're coming up for a business visit. Maybe they're coming up to work for a little bit, and they're not sure whether they're going to be able to return to the United States, right? Despite the fact that they've been living in the United States for long periods of time, right?
And what about the level of anxiety are you hearing in the States around this? Because we saw a letter that was written by all of the big high-tech companies, whether it was Google or Apple, and there's a whole bunch of them in the Silicon Valley have written saying, listen, we need to have immigration and people coming from all of these countries to build the things that everybody uses, smartphones, Google. I mean,
well, there's 3 big. If you want to break our calls up on this area, you've got 3 different groups. So the first are people that are already in the system, in the United States legitimately, not refugee claimants like we talked on the last segment, but people who have completed a master's in the United States, people who already are working on a work permit in the United States, who have now seen their hopes of getting a green card perhaps dashed, perhaps put on hold indefinitely, who are now looking to Canada as a place to move to because they don't want to go back to their home countries. The reason that they've left is because of either lack of opportunity or economic chaos or state failure in the country, depending on which one we're talking about. And now they can't stay in the United States. And you have to step back and think about this. These are people with master's degrees and jobs. What risk are they posing to the U.S. system? They've been in the U.S. for 5 to 7 years in some of their cases. So that's one group. And a lot of them have a reasonable chance at immigrating to Canada because these are people that
highly desirable.
Yep. So that's group number one. The second...
Do they just want to park here for the meantime and then maybe end up back?
I think that's a problem that everybody has. But at the same time,
O'Leary has the same problem, right? I mean, it depends.
Yeah, that's right.
Ignatieff had the same issue. I mean, the United States
right. I mean, the reality
visiting.
is, though, if you come when you're 32 or 33 and you get a job in Canada and you get married and you have children,
you're likely to stay where you are.
Mm-hmm. And if you have skills that are desirable that'll do well in this system, I mean, yes, maybe you'll get better opportunity one day when things change in the United States, maybe. But for now, this is what's driving the anxiety on the U.S. side. And these are people, some of them have a lot of choice. Then a second group that is really being affected by this are companies in high tech and companies in other industries that are really what we would call knowledge worker industries, who have concerns about their employees. They don't know what to do with this person who is Iranian born, who they have on an H-1 or on a different type of visa in the United States, who they've invested in, who they've made a key part of their organization, who now they can't keep.
Or even worse, like that we see a lot is they're up here in Canada working in Vancouver, and one of the, we've got Microsoft
here, EA, all these companies.
And the plan was we brought them over here so they'd have easier access to the U.S. market. right? They'd be able to sort of work up here, travel down there because the U.S. restrictions on H-1B visas, it's hard to get. It's a very quota-driven system, so it's hard to get those U.S. visas. Canada, look a great place to park those people, bring them over here, and then allow them access to the States.
And the same time zone, easy flights, all that stuff.
Right?
Well,
now they looked at it, it's shot. They're looking at it going, well, he can't travel because he's not a U.S. green card holder, right? And he's a foreign national from one of the 7 countries, and he's not able to go to the United States.
And the challenges that this poses that will very possibly be an incredible opportunity for the Lower Mainland is that some of these companies are simply going to vote, well, we have to expand our Vancouver office or our Toronto office or our Calgary office deal with this.
What's the third group? Because we're short on time.
Institutions, academic ones in particular. So what you're seeing is this ban all of a sudden meant that dozens of academics all over North America were not allowed to travel to conferences anymore, couldn't even get on a plane, couldn't be brought back. UBC alone, UBC and SFU have estimated that literally dozens of their academics, including PhD students, master's students, full professors, are now not able to go to the United States because perhaps they don't have permanent residence in Canada yet, or even if they are a permanent resident holder, they have to go and get a waiver every time they enter the United States. The level of anxiety with academic institutions has been quite phenomenal, and they've had to look carefully at their participation in various
where they're going to go and what they're going to do.
What they're going to do. And so if you're running a big U.S. conference right now on a particular education area, there's been a huge uproar from these institutions about what they feel are incredibly arbitrary restrictions being put on people that are legitimate academics.
So back to your previous point, Rudy, that there could be a net positive for places like Vancouver that has sort of a tech infrastructure already. Microsoft, EA, other companies that have American, offices that maybe move people here.
Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be in the planning if we can't move them. If they're in the United States and they can't stay here because there's no future for them, which is what the government's telegraphing, really, right? You're not welcome, and it's going to be difficult for you. Then the thought becomes, well, can we move them someplace close? Like you said, same time zone, right? Same language, and we have an office there. Can we move them that way, right? And so I think that's going to be part of the planning process. I mean, it's short term. Who knows, where this is going to be in 90 days? But right now, I think that's going through.
And have you had those specific calls?
We've had calls about people, yeah, definitely in the IT sector. This guy's not going to stay here. What does it take to move them to Canada? Right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm having a call like that today at 4:00 from a company in the United States in Los Angeles that needs to know what to do with 2 of its employees and wants to look at Canada.
And how hard would it be for them to move somebody that's
on a case-by-case basis? It depends, really. Do they have an affiliate in Canada? That often makes things easier. The people that I'm dealing with today do, so that will make things slightly easier for them.
Now, do they fall under the NAFTA?
Well, they're not, because they're not U.S.
They're
citizens.
not U.S. citizens,
Usually,
right?
Not US citizens.
Because you had told me in the past that if you're a Canadian American, you can move across the border quite easily under the NAFTA agreement.
Yeah, so we haven't seen any sort of Americans that have dual nationalities thinking about moving.
But we have had previous shows about the George W. Bush second election. People were thinking, okay, I'm getting out. Have you had any of that?
We were having that before, and what I've seen is actually those people that are already sort of, we've started working with them, is they're, how's it going? Can we move this along any faster? Because things are getting hot down here.
And they're American citizens.
Yeah, they're American citizens. They're people usually, like I said, I mean, some of the examples that come to mind, people that are minorities, right? People in a mix. We've had people that are Jewish calling, sort of, and they look at their past, their history, and go, this sort of reminds me of a time period in the 1930s in Germany. Mm-hmm. I think it might be time to sort of get out early.
All right, in our last minute here, any crystal ball you want to see down the road? What might happen with this travel executive order? I think it's going to last, or
I think Trump. I think Trump's had the desired effect in terms of appealing to his base. I don't think it's going to have any practical good effect, but I think in terms of politically, I think he's got. I don't know how. I think his base liked it, despite it being sort of a blunt instrument and impractical, and probably hasn't increased security at all. I think the problem that the Democrats and people fighting against this are going to have is there's a part of the American society that thinks, I don't know anybody from those 7 countries. 6 of them are failed states. What is the problem with keeping these people out, right? They don't look at the nuances.
In 15 seconds.
Well, my great worry is the disruption of international travel back to 9/11 levels, just because of the unpredictability of this. And when the people that are actually issuing the orders don't have the support of their own officials, that's always a recipe for disaster.
And I'm sure we'll be talking about this in a future show. Rudy Kisher and Alex Stojicevic from MKS Law in downtown Vancouver. Great having you on the show. Thanks for your time. Great insight.
Thanks a lot, Zach.
And we'll speak to you next time on The Law Show on CL 650.